So I had some people ask if I could talk more about how you demo your own ideas out and come up with drum parts to go with guitar and bass parts, and then turn those into programmed parts so you can show your whole band what you think the song is supposed to sound like. It will take a little practice, I think, just kind of like getting a sense of how drum parts work musically if you've never played drums before, but I can show you how I do it myself as well. I've already started making a little bit of a demo here. It's only about a 30-second track, and I already laid a little bit of a drum track down. I'll show you how I did it thus far, and then we'll go in and make some changes that I think will make everything sound a lot tighter and cleaner, so that when you show your friends and your bandmates, they'll be like, wow, I totally get what you meant here. So let's get into it. I'll get rid of my face here. Here is the demo. Let me play it back so you get a sense of what it sounds like. It's only about 30 seconds. So to start with, in order to come up with this drum part, which is crudely mapped out, but you might notice pretty out of time, I just played the drums on my little keyboard here. So you can pull it up in GarageBand, and I'm assuming a lot of other DAWs have a similar feature, and if they don't, you can always get a little cheap MIDI keyboard and just play like a... Right? You have full control. You can play little grooves. Like so. It's hard for me to play right now because I'm listening back and there's a slight delay to everything that I'm playing, which is partially why I structured this the way that I did. So I laid down everything that you just heard using this method, right? I just played along, and I tried it a few times. I didn't just, record the first time and get exactly what I wanted. It took a few attempts to get something that felt close enough to what I wanted where I wouldn't have to make a ton of changes, and also kind of reflected the overall groove that I was looking for. You'll notice that this part kind of shifts between stuff that's more ostinato with the guitar part versus stuff that's kind of grooving. I think that's really critical to a drum part in a Screamo song. I'll show you what I mean, like this opening bit here. That's not so much of a groove as it is something that just follows the pattern that's been already established by the guitar part, and then that's immediately followed by a couple of bars of something that more so grooves. So we're getting this alternating between something that's probably a little bit more angular and something that's a little bit more head bobbing. Writing parts like this is just going to take time. Again, like starting to just figure out simple grooves and stuff is probably the best way to do it. You might get a little bit more of a sense of how this all works once I show you the MIDI sheet that we're actually going to be working with. So I like how this sounds, but there's some problems, namely that stuff is out of time. I don't like some of the fills. I think we could probably do a better job of building in structure. I could just export it here and be done with it, but I'm not totally satisfied. So if I open up my MIDI roll here, you can see down low, these are the keys that are getting played, and when they're depressed, it's sort of like, any rhythm game. But you can tell if you look kind of along the top here where the beats are supposed to fall. And generally speaking, you want these notes to kind of line up with these lines, unless you're playing something that's crazy off time. And in this case, we're not really doing that. So one thing I might go through and do is just kind of realign everything. Like one thing I noticed right off the bat is that my first two hits, this kick here is way too close to this snare. So now it'll sound a little bit better. So that's one thing we can go through and do. I don't see too many huge discrepancies, but if I pick up on something else while we're going through this, I will change that as well. Here, for instance, we're not hitting the 1 exactly. This is the beginning of the 8th measure here, and you can see this crash a little too far ahead. The kick that goes with it a little too far ahead as well. So we're just dragging stuff around until it's in place in time. So one thing I might want to do is try and fix this fill. It's pretty simple, this part here. Right, it's a little... From here over, it's a little simple. So what we can do is maybe add in some tom sections, because I didn't play any tom while I was doing this. So maybe we'll do that. Yeah, one in the ear, and then we'll copy and paste another one the next line over, following it. So you can see that has like a little bit more of a pop punky feel, I guess. And then I think I also want a little bell. I think maybe I'll switch that actually with this snare hit. So that's kind of how you can add in little flares that are going to make it feel more finished off. And you can tell that I'm also going through and checking to make sure that everything's still in time. So now that beginning phrase sounds like this. And let's listen to it with everything. So one thing you'll notice is that even if you have no familiarity with how drumming works whatsoever, you have infinite malleability here. And if you take the time, you can write any drum part. You've got all of your sounds, all these here, and you can just move stuff around until it sounds cool to you. It's also possible to look at other MIDI rolls for other songs that have been created before and use that as a reference point. Yeah, I mean, this is actually pretty simple once you start sitting down and actually putting notes on the roll. Anything you don't like, you can just delete. And if you think that was a mistake to delete it, you can just put it back again. You can listen back to it every time you make a slight change. There's really no way you can mess this up. It's just a matter of experimenting with it. One thing I'll say is that as you're doing this, you want to maybe try and do some fancier patterns, look into figuring out how to include triplets and maybe some more off time playing as well. Truthfully, I don't really have much of a formal understanding of percussion, so I can't tell you too much about like the rudiments and stuff that you might use in order to play these parts or write them out. But hopefully this was helpful, and hopefully you have a good idea of how you can move on and start making your own demos in a DAW, so that you and your bandmates can write faster and cooler stuff.